Okay, so in this episode, we're going to talk about cultivating gratitude, wonder, and joy. And if you give me a minute, I'll explain why this is so important in this season where we talk about the Zen of productivity. So, when we talk about productivity in general, the general dialogue about productivity is how do I get more efficient? How do I get more stuff done? How do I tackle all of the hard things? How do I be more disciplined? How do I increase my output? So I know people listening to this podcast don't necessarily have that kind of way of relating to productivity, but that is the general idea. And in fact, I think a lot of us have that kind of mindset of, I am not doing enough and I need to do better. I need to be more disciplined and less distracted. There's some truth to that, but what you might notice about that is that it's really focused on output and getting stuff done and forcing yourself to do stuff that you don't love. And the problem with that is that there isn't any fun in that. There's no room for joy. It's just crank out a bunch of stuff. And so the experience, the underlying experience we might have of productivity from this kind of a mindset, the underlying experience is one of just getting through things, not really loving what we're doing. And at the end of the day, it's just like I got a bunch of stuff done. It wasn't everything that I really wanted to get done. I feel like I'm still failing. I'm still overwhelmed. I'm still underwater, barely trying to survive. And that's not such a great way to live our lives. That's repeated day after day to the point where we will feel burnout. And we talked about burnout, I think, a couple episodes ago. Yeah, three episodes ago. Um, but what if we could create a whole different experience? What if it didn't have to be that way? What if you could be productive and disciplined and getting important stuff done, but have a completely different underlying experience of doing that? What if you could have any experience you wanted to have? And the ones we're going to talk about here, the experience would be a sense of gratitude, appreciation for life and the moment and what we're doing, but also a sense of wonder and joy. Now, you could put any words you wanted to in terms of what underlying experience you want to have. If you want to have play, if you want to have adventure, if you want to have curiosity, if you want to have magic, if you want to have a sacred experience of divinity, you can have all of that. But for this episode, I'm going to talk about gratitude, wonder, and joy. Okay, so let's talk about that in terms of Zen practice. We're going to talk also about how gratitude can boost productivity, which is maybe counterintuitive for some people. And then how to find joy in the process instead of just in the results we're trying to attain. Okay, so in Zen practice, now again, I'm not a Zen priest, I'm not a Zen teacher or a Zen master, anything like that. I'm a Zen student and a Zen practitioner for the last 12, 14 years or so, maybe more like 20 if depending on when you count when I started. So I know a little bit about Zen practice, but not, I wouldn't say that I'm not an expert in it. Um, but gratitude in Zen practice is about not taking each moment for granted. So let's say you're sitting in meditation. It doesn't have to be meditation, but let's say I'm sitting in meditation. How can I, instead of taking this moment for granted, which might be like the moment right before it and the moment right before that, and so it gets boring and just like, I'm tired of this. Why don't I go and check my emails or my messages? So if we start to take each moment for granted, this is what Zen practice is helping us to wake up to, is the fact that we are taking it for granted, that we let ourselves get bored with each moment, that we're just taking everything as the same and we've shut off our curiosity. The idea of beginner's mind in Zen practice, Zen mind, beginner's mind, they're really the same thing. The idea of beginner's mind is the idea of what if this moment were the first moment you ever experienced. That's the kind of freshness. So that if you see an apple in front of you, you don't think, oh, apple. I've seen, thousands of apples before. What if this was like the first time I'd ever seen an apple? In fact, what if you didn't have the concept of apple? What if you could just see it with fresh eyes and be like, whoa, look at this thing in front of me? That's that's a sense of what beginner's mind is. Now, there's a lot more to it, but we could say that that's beginner's mind in a nutshell, or an apple core. And so, what if we could see this apple with beginner's mind and then start to just really fully appreciate it? That's a sense of gratitude. This is like, whoa, look at what I get to experience. Not just an apple, but a breath. Not just a breath, but a moment where you are sitting in a quiet morning or in rush hour traffic. What if we could have gratitude and wonder for every single moment, just full appreciation of the present moment? So, this episode is not about Zen practice, but I wanted just to touch on what that would be like in Zen practice so that we can see that that could be in anything that I do. If I'm answering emails or, writing something, or I'm, washing dishes, I can fully awaken in each moment and fully appreciate the moment in front of me. Think of it as fleeting and precious. That is how we can really appreciate anything that we're doing, and that's the role of gratitude in Zen practice. So, how does this boost our productivity? Well, hopefully, you can see that it gives us a sense of appreciation, gratitude, maybe even wonder. It's like, whoa, look at this thing that I am doing here, that this moment that I get to experience. That's wonder, and from wonder we can have joy. So it hopefully you can appreciate how it can change the underlying experience if we open our eyes to fully appreciating the present moment, including answering an email, responding to someone's text messages, working with our to-do list, doing our taxes. We can fully appreciate each moment with practice, opening it up to it and having a different underlying experience. But how does that boost productivity? Well, if we are appreciating the moment, first of all, we're going to dread it less. Have you ever had the experience of like, oh my God, I have so much to do, feeling overwhelmed. I don't want to do it. I'm going to go and look at social media or watch YouTube or something like that. So there's an avoidance when we are not looking forward to something. And why would we look forward to it if it's the same as the thousand other days that we've done exactly the same thing? Why would we do that? Well, we wouldn't want to. So dread and overwhelm and avoidance all kind of come with the territory of that other way of doing things. But if we're like, oh my God, I get to answer this email to this person who cares about me and who I really want to connect with, amazing. Or I get to move this project forward and that's going to serve people in a really awesome way that I care about. Ah, I get to like, be of service and devote myself to, making the world a better place. That can light us up with gratitude and wonder and joy and make us want to do things. We start to move towards things with like an attraction to these things. It's more magnetic in the sense of being attracted to rather than the kind of magnetism that repels. So usually we're in the kind of magnetism that repels, like, I don't want to do that again. But with this kind of gratitude, full appreciation for each moment and every task that we're doing, we can actually start to want to do things and appreciate the deeper meaning behind it and feel lit up as we do it. Feel a sense of joy and maybe play, maybe fun, maybe magic. All of this is available if we start to practice this way. So it makes us move towards things, which already is a huge, huge factor in what we're doing in the world and how productive we are. But I think there's more. as well. When we fail to do something, let's say I wanted to work on this project and for some reason, I got pulled away from it and then I start to feel discouraged. So discouragement is not, there's nothing wrong with that. But that discouragement might make me just be like, I've lost motivation. I'm not working on something. So productivity drops when we get discouraged. Now, I'm not saying discouragement is a bad thing. What if we could just sit for a moment and fully appreciate a moment of discouragement? It's like this slumped over, deflated feeling. Now, can we find appreciation and wonder in that moment of discouragement? I submit that it's possible. So we can just be with that. But maybe we can just have a sense of tenderness and compassion and love for ourselves in that moment. Maybe we don't get to gratitude and appreciation, wonder and joy. So just a sense of sitting there with our discouragement. But as we do that, we might start to notice there's more to this moment than just the feeling of deflatedness and discouragement. I also have a breath. Oh, but if I'm focused completely on the discouragement, I don't notice the breath. Oh, and as I have a breath, I notice I have a body that's breathing the breath. A lot of B's in that sentence. I have a body that's breathing the breath. And all of a sudden, I'm starting to appreciate the moment that is beyond just the feeling of discouragement. Now I might notice that there's sunlight in the room and air. And oh, outside in the window, I can see blue sky and trees. And all of a sudden, I'm like open to the wider moment rather than just the discouragement. And now I can find a reason why this thing matters to me enough to actually start to take the next smallest step and then fully appreciate that next smallest step. And so coming back becomes possible when we start to practice this way. Okay, so that's how gratitude, appreciation can boost productivity. Let's talk about finding joy in the process, not just the results. So, to this audience, the people listening to or watching this episode, I imagine you understand that concept just as I say it. Finding joy in the process, not just the results. That said, there might be one or two of you who are like, I've never heard of this mind-blowing concept. Leo, give me the wisdom. So I'm going to do a little bit of recap for those people, but then let's talk about how to actually practice it. So a lot of times when we take on a project or a task or a goal, we're looking at what gets done at the end. And like, oh my God, if I run the marathon, at the end, I cross the finish line and it's like, yes, that's going to feel so freaking good. That's where I'm going to find some joy. Hallelujah. And so we envision that. And so then we start to train for it and then we do the marathon. And the training in the marathon is just trying to like ways for me to get there, so the stepping stones to get there, but they aren't that fun in and of themselves. What keeps me going is this idea that I'm going to get to the finish line and feel the hallelujah moment. But that isn't enough to keep us going. When things get difficult, when we have fears, when we get discouraged, when we just want to stay in our, cozy bed and it's a cold morning outside, or things are just feeling really a lot right now. It's like that's not enough, is to think about the hallelujah moment at the finish line. What we really need is to think of how do we pull the hallelujah moment forward into right now? As I consider going outside, can I be like, oh my God, look at me. I am a marathoner, right? I am someone who knows how to put on his shoes because I learned it at 5 years old. Thank you very much. I am someone who uh, likes to run, likes to go outside, likes to move his body. I'm someone who enjoys a challenge and enjoys facing discomfort and expands himself. And so in this moment, as I start to put on my shoes and go outside, I can actually really appreciate who I am. And even the act of putting on these shoes, which freaking cost me $130. Whoa, actually, the ones I have are like $80, but still, They're not cheap shoes. And so look at the privilege of having freaking running shoes. Some people run barefoot like idiots. No, I'm just kidding. I used to run barefoot. Um, so I have shoes to put on, and like, look at these beautiful freaking pieces of technology that I get to put on my feet to protect me and allow me to run comfortably. And now I get to like go outside in my, sexy running shorts and go out and enjoy movement and find a new path and see what, the birds are up to today. And so on this run, I'm having hallelujah moments left and right. It doesn't have to come only after the crossing the finish line. Now, I think that's obvious with a marathon, but what are we doing on a daily basis? We are getting through it as opposed to, oh my God, I have a freaking computer in front of me. Remember the days when people didn't have computers? I do. I remember when my uncle got the first computer that I'd ever seen, and I'm like, this is magic. When are we going to get one, Mom and Dad? It wouldn't be a few more years until we actually got one. We couldn't afford it, but nowadays everyone has multiple freaking computers, a laptop, maybe a desktop at work, maybe a phone. Some people have computers on their wrists and rings and, cars. And so we are we are gifted. And so the idea here is to allow ourselves to really appreciate every moment, not just the outcome. And could you start to open yourself to that possibility? It's a practice. We will shut it down because that's what we have learned to do over and over and over and over and over. We've trained ourselves to shut down possibility and joy and hallelujah. And what I'm encouraging you to do is to find that in every step along the way, every step where you remember, and then when you forget and you feel bad about it, find joy in that part. Make yourself make it hilarious how bad you're trying to make yourself feel. Be like you know, one of those drill sergeant tropes where you're like, I am like gonna be a larger than life drill sergeant yelling at myself in a really ridiculous way and find joy in that as well. So we can bring play, we can bring joy, we can bring gratitude, appreciation, we can bring curiosity, compassion, and love. All of these amazing things, and that will transform the process of doing our meaningful work. That will transform who we be as we do our meaningful work. And I believe it'll also make us a little more disciplined and productive, which is a nice thing. Okay, my friends, I hope this was helpful to you. I will talk to you at a later date.